Good evening and welcome to the Sports Locker. Now, the Commonwealth Games wrapped up a few weeks ago now, and Team Gibraltar, after a long competition, is back on the rock. Now, these were a reduced games, which meant some of our more popular sports like cycling and triathlon couldn't make it, but it did open the doors to some new sports like judo to make their debut and boxing to return to the games after a long period being absent. I'm now welcomed by some of Team Gibraltar members, chef de mission Chris Walker, swimmer Jordan Gonzalez, athlete Pau Funes Fa, boxer Ewan Gracia, and judokai Bradley Morris Mackenzie. Guys, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you for having us.
Chris, we'll start with you. It was a long competition. I mean, now that you've been back in the rock for a couple of weeks and it's all kind of settled down, how would you look back on the experience?
I think we'll look back on Glasgow as a Games that saved the Commonwealth Games. There was a danger that it was not going to take part, and a general feeling was that if it didn't take part, it would never take part again. So I think, thankfully, Glasgow stepped in to take over from the state of Victoria in Australia, who pulled out at the last minute. And within 18 months, they staged an outstanding Games, considering the timescales that they had. And I think for Team Gibraltar, we're going to look back on this Games as a starting point for quite a few of our athletes, and also to remember those sports that made their debut and returned to the Games after a very long absence.
You've got quite a few debutants here, but talking about athletes that made the start, let's start with one that's making the end to their career. Jordan, for yourself, I mean, after going to, was it 3 Commonwealth Games? What was it like? It must have been quite emotional knowing this would be the last time you were attending.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of, you know, there was a lot of like nervousness, and when I was there, it was in my mind, I was constantly thinking, well, actually, maybe I could do this again or not. But to be honest, I mean, it's a lot of work, a lot of effort that you put in through, you know, a lot of time that you have to, you know, show up to training and just to get things right, to just literally be there. So, yeah, mixed emotions.
I imagine it was nerve-wracking even way before you got in the pool, because you were also Gibraltar's flag bearer, so it's quite an honour, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think that was the highlight of these Games, to be honest with you. I mean, my last Games, and I get to carry the flag, yeah.
For all of you, it was the first time going to the Commonwealth Games, and Bao, we'll start with you because you're the youngest at 17. I know you've been to the World Championships representing Gibraltar for athletics, but I mean, the Commonwealth Games kind of feels like a mini Olympics. What was it like for you?
I mean, it's a proud moment to always wear the Gibraltar kit and compete for your country against such a good calibre of athletes, and with a lot of fans watching and a stadium pulse. It's always a great feeling.
And Bradley, you were not only going for the first time as yourself, but you're going for the first time representing Gibraltar in judo, along with Adam as well. So for you guys, I mean, history in the making, quite literally.
Absolutely. No, it was amazing. It was an absolute honour to compete for Gibraltar. And as you say, the first time judo was represented in the Commonwealth Games. And no, I think we've done amazing. So, yeah, absolutely brilliant.
And you couldn't have had a tougher draw, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. Ewan, for yourself, I mean, you've been involved in Gibraltar boxing for quite a while now, and you've competed in and around Spain and Morocco more recently, but nothing quite like this, right?
No, I mean, this definitely takes the prize. It was amazing. It was well organised. I mean, from like a boxing point of view as well, they had like so many elements in play. And I mean, like you said, the calibre of opponents is incredible.
You've been going now, Chris, as an athlete, I believe, 2002, perhaps your first Commonwealth Games. Not to show your age, but here, 2002. And now been going as chef de mission. But does this feel like it's kind of a bit of like a passing of the baton now, with so many young athletes going for the first time?
I think that because it was a restricted Games in number of sports, it was always going to be different. You know, we've got 3 main Gibraltar sports that weren't in this Games: shooting, or the 3 different disciplines of shooting as well, cycling and triathlon. So this was always going to be an opportunity for the younger athletes to take advantage of the fact that, you know, we weren't able to participate in those sports, and to gain valuable experience of competing in the Commonwealth Games, because, as you said, it is very, very different to a World Championships and to anything else that they will have experienced. So definitely we took the view to take some of the younger athletes, to give them the experience so that hopefully in 4 years' time, we've got the Centenary Games in India, that this is going to be a full-scale games. You know, I think there's going to be around 17 sports. They've still to be confirmed, but we're hoping that obviously the sports that we missed out on this time are going to be in India, and the competition for places is therefore going to be significantly harder. But what it's given the younger athletes is this experience that if they are good enough to get selected for the next games, they're going to be so much better prepared because they're going to know how the games works, the scale of the games, and what's needed to be able to compete at that level.
And let's talk about a couple of the young athletes, because I know Pau is 17, but even younger than that were swimmers, your colleagues, Katie Green and Katie Maddox, just 14.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't as young as 14 when you went to the Commonwealth Games, so to see them there at this age, what was it like for you? A bit of a kind of like father figure, giving them some tips?
Yeah, it was really good. I felt like I had a dual sort of role. I was a swimmer at one point, and then, you know, one moment, and then on the other side I was coaching, you know, helping out with the coaching and stuff. But yeah, no, honestly, they showed a lot of professionalism, you know, for 14-year-olds, and I mean all the swimmers did. And to be honest, it was brilliant. It was good to see they were super excited, so that sort of added on to that experience, you know, of it being a good one, really.
And I imagine, I mean, I saw a couple of times that Katie was walking out. She had her headphones on, very focused. And at times, maybe that's a bit hard for Gibraltarian swimmers because you don't often get to compete at a high level or get regular competition week in, week out. So quite amazing, really, for them to be so focused at such a young age, no?
Yeah. Again, it was a positive sort of mental attitude that they all showed when heading towards the call room, which was brilliant to see.
Yeah.
And
for yourself to share it with Jim, I suppose a close friend of yours, slightly older than you too, and you did fantastically well. I mean, Jim was agonizingly close to a national record, which he already held anyway, and you were also very close to a PB, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. I mean, there was a couple, being technical with the event itself, you know, there was a couple of things that I say that I, you know, didn't do properly, but it is what it is, you know. At the end of the day, it's just boils down to, you know, the actual competition, the actual day where, you know, if the stars align, you sort of perform your best, and if not, well, you just have to know how to sort of adapt to, you know, going as fast as possible.
But you ran in 2 events, so I imagine that, did it feel like in the second event for 200 meters you kind of got rid of those nerves, or not quite because you are lining up against top athletes?
No, I think, no, I was nervous, I tried to just enjoy the moment. And yeah, the 100 does help because I did the 200 after. So having done the 100, I knew more or less like how it feels, all the cameras, all the people watching. And I was more like settled down and more calm to race.
I would say you were definitely more settled because in the first race, the 100 meters, you didn't do much to the camera. But when the 200 meters it came, you did the whole Pau Funes Fa, pointed up the sky. So you definitely seemed a lot more relaxed.
Oh, yeah. I have to have that mentality in sprints, thinking, obviously, I'm not the best when there's like an Olympic champion a bit more to my left, but before the race, I try to think like I'm the guy they want to be, even though it's not.
I like it. Yeah, confident.
I always try to have that mentality.
Bradley, for yourself, you mentioned how difficult of a first round it was, and you were up against the Commonwealth champion, Jamal Petgrave. I mean, what was it like when you first locked arms with him?
I mean, to be honest, when I first...
Chris is just laughing.
So, to be honest, when I first heard about the draw, the manager said to me, he goes, look, we've got Petgrave on our first match. And I was like, come on, anyone but Petgrave, you know, the current champion, as you say. But that was all an experience. As soon as we locked horns, I could just feel his strength. And as you know, I don't know if you've seen it, I got thrown and then held down for 10 seconds, and that was the fight was over after that. But there was a few learning points, many takeaway points from that, and just push forward, get back on the horse and move on from there.
Yeah, I mean, judo's so fast and explosive. Was it a learning curve for you while you were in the mat? I mean, how quickly did you have to adapt or perhaps change a game plan up against someone like him?
To be honest, so judo, if you put the wrong foot forward, it can all be over in seconds. You can get thrown within a second. And where I went wrong is he had both of my sleeves, which was his grip, and I was thrown. So it's just a takeaway point from there, and a few working points for next time round, if there is one. So we'll see.
Ewan, for yourself, representing Gibraltar for the first time as an athlete, boxing making a return since the 60s, I believe it is, so a very long time. You went as well with your colleague Jordan Fa, who was unable to fight based on medical grounds. So
Yeah.
very sorry to hear, because he was also very excited today. I interviewed him before he went, so it all just went down to you, really. And you're also up against tough opponents, but you really gave a good show. I mean, what a fight it was.
Yeah, it was definitely a tough opponent, and he was like deceptively tough, I think, because we watched him the Friday that he boxed, and you know he didn't look like he had a lot behind his shots, but I got in the ring, and he can throw a pretty good shot. So it was good. Put it on him. He obviously got the first round under the belt. Gave me a standing count in that round, and I think it was reversed in the second round where I managed to give him a standing count. Dominated that round, and then it just came down to the third round. But unfortunately, I had a couple of point deductions. So
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we don't want to talk badly about the referees, but at times I was watching and thinking, what the heck is going on here?
yeah, it was an odd. I think there was a couple of odd calls, especially towards like the beginning of like the boxing, because later on, the referees were being assessed as well. So obviously the ones that aren't performing the best are getting sort of pushed aside. But I mean there was a couple of weird calls, but I mean it is what it is. We move forward and we just I keep boxing.
Chris, from your seat, I mean, how important was it for the Gibraltar Association to see the return of boxing and for judo to make a debut?
Really important. The associations were new to this. Both of the associations were new. The rules and regulations of those two sports are extremely complicated, much more complicated than the other sports that we're dealing with. And they all, did really well, worked with us really well in the months leading up to the games. We were very well prepared on all the backstage areas. I mean, with Ewan, boxed on was the first performance of the games, and it really, his performance, I think, really lifted everybody in Glasgow. It could have gone either way, and I think Ewan's performance just set everybody else up on a high to continue to try and perform at their best going forward. And Ewan is now the only Gibraltarian boxer to have completed 3 rounds and got to the end for a points decision, because our previous boxer in the 60s, it was a technical knockout.
Wow. You got to keep on. I mean, unfortunately, boxing isn't in the Island Games, but I imagine your next goal would be the next Commonwealth Games, hopefully.
Yeah, no. Well, that's the plan. Especially, an amateur, the Commonwealth Games is a big step to anything really. I mean, it's one of the most prestigious boxing events. So, if I can get on another one, absolutely, without a doubt.
Well, guys, part 1 has completely flown by. Stay tuned for part 2. We'll continue the Commonwealth Games conversation. Welcome back to the Sports Locker. We're talking all things Commonwealth Games with some of Team Gibraltar here. Chris, we'll start with you. Managing a squad of athletes that ranges from, the precise weight classes of boxing and judo to multi-events like heptathlon. As chef de mission, what's the biggest challenge when you have to have a bit of a control on all these different kinds of sports that work all so differently?
Well, my job is actually made an awful lot easier with the support teams that we have. So obviously each sport has its own team manager, which basically take responsibility for the detail of each sport. And then we've got Linda and Brian as general team managers, who are there to support the team managers. So for this games, there were 3 separate zones, and we were split by sport. So we had a team manager, a general team manager in each of the 3 zones, and they worked very closely with the team managers. So in that respect, actually, they do more work than I do, because they are dealing with the day-to-day operations there. My role is very much more as an oversee role, where I make sure that I see every athlete compete at least once, because one of my other roles within the association is as the technical committee chair, which is the one that sets the standards for the performance in the Commonwealth Games. So it's really important that I get to understand the level of performance of all of the athletes that we've taken, and also within the Commonwealth Games, within that competition. And as you rightly said, we had 2 new sports, judo and boxing, which I hold my hands up and say I don't know anything about them. And we had the heptathlon, which was a bit of an eye-opener as well. So it was really good in that respect, because I think as a Commonwealth Games Association, we're now in a better place. So that if we do need to select athletes going forward, we have a better base with which to make some decisions.
You mentioned the heptathlete there, and you mentioned, heptathlon, and you mentioned having to see every athlete at least once. You would have had quite a few chances to see Ella Rush. Luckily, she competed quite a few times. What a fantastic debut for her, wasn't it? 4 national records.
Yes, it was great. I actually spent quite a bit of time with Ella on the first day of competition, in the backstage areas as well. And it's absolute chaos. I mean, you've got all these events. They have different equipment for each of the 8 different events.
Yeah.
The amount of preparation that needs to go into that is immense. I mean, I come from triathlon, which is a multi-sport, and we're only dealing with 3 sports. But, Ella has to do that. And so there was quite a lot of support there. But yes, it was great to see Ella out on the international stage. I think it was the end of her season, so I think she was a little bit tired. But I've no doubt that she really benefited from the Commonwealth Games experience, and that is going to put her in really good stead for the future.
Important to also mention Asia Kent, who made it to her second semi-final, I believe, in just her second Commonwealth Games. Alongside the heptathlete Ella Rush, is that kind of one of the achievements that stood out to you the most, making it to a semi-final? And Jordan could probably vouch for how hard that is in swimming at the Commonwealth Games to qualify to a semi-final.
It's a great achievement to get to semi-final, no doubt. You just have to look at the amount of people from Gibraltar that have made a semi-final or a final.
I think it's just a handful of people, yeah.
For sure. Within athletics and swimming, it's very much like that. But I think, for me personally, I think the youngsters that made their debut and the sports that made their debut was the standout performances of the Games. I think, as Pau's already said, I think they showed a level of maturity beyond their years. And I think that is going to really stand them in good stead. And the conversations I've had with all of them have been the enthusiasm that they've now got when they were at the Games of really working hard to try and make the team for the next Games. That is what shone out for me on this. And they are definitely going to have to work really hard because the sports that are going to come back, they've got athletes that have been performing at this level, and their level of work, they're already at that level. So,
and I feel like they'll miss out on this one, so they've got a little bit even more eager.
Yeah, definitely so. And we've got 2 Island Games before the next Commonwealth Games. We've got the Faroes next year, and then we've got the Isle of Man in 2029, and they will be key. Absolutely key to see. And what we're hoping is that, particularly on those younger athletes, they are using those as stepping stones, and we can see improvement after improvement, and that will help get their selection.
Jordan, I'll ask you, because you're a swimmer and you're retiring, but I don't want you to step on anyone's toes. I mean, how easy or difficult would it be to have more regular competitions hosted here in Gibraltar in our pool in Loughborough?
I mean, similar to what Chris said, the importance is really, it's really important to to have Spanish clubs come over and compete. And already I know for a fact that, for instance, Los Barrios, they've been using our facilities for training. So you kind of grow that sort of relationship with them. You see them, you speak to their coaches, they speak to us, we kind of know who they are. And from a swimming aspect, we do go compete in what they call the FAN, which is sort of regional Andalusian championships. Again, we have state-of-the-art swimming pool. It's incredible, the swimming pool that we have. So in terms of infrastructure, it's there. Now with the border going down, before the border was out, we had these clubs coming over. So now that the border's has gone down,
even easier, no?
It's even easier, but again, it will bring, I'd like to say it will bring a positive sort of impact to swimming in Gibraltar, 100%.
But you get to enjoy a lot of competition, I suppose, in Spain, and athletics perhaps tend to go out a little bit more because you were in Monaco for those small states too. What would you like to see more from the Athletic Association in terms of helping you prepare a little bit more for the next Commonwealth Games?
I mean, it's what they said, bringing more competition in so you get that level of athletes and you don't line up against the same 3 people every 2 weeks. Like, for example, I am lucky enough to compete for a club in Spain. So I've gone to Spanish championships and Andalusian championship, and I think that gives me an edge because I am so used to competition. I'm so used to being in the warm-up area right beside athletes you don't know, and like you check your heat and you prepare better for that. So I think that settles you more. So when you go to the Commonwealth, you know what a big average competition is like.
Bradley, now that judo's on the map for Gibraltar, I mean, what do you think needs to happen now to kind of build on this momentum for judo?
So to build on this momentum itself, obviously, as Chris mentioned before, we've got the Island Games next year, which is a big competition itself. So that'll be sort of like a good sort of feeling ground to see where we're at in terms of our level. So I just think, as you say, working on the momentum itself that we've now got, and we'll just go from there.
And Ewan, for yourself, I mean, the return for boxing to the Commonwealth Games, bringing that experience back to Gibraltar. I know it's always been a very popular sport, but add to that we recently were recognised now by World Boxing as well.
Yeah.
Does it all feel like it's all starting to get quite real for boxing in Gibraltar now?
Well, yeah, I mean, now I think just in the last 2 years, obviously, I started competing 2 years ago. So in that time, I've had now 17 fights. Is amazing because you got to think before then there wasn't any fights in Gib. That people weren't going away to fight. There wasn't really anything. Boxing was quite stagnant in Gib. So I think now to go from just starting, having a couple of bouts, having my first fight in February 2024 to now in 2026 being on the Commonwealth Games is like, it's incredible.
Anything in mind to go professional? I mean, how has that crossed your mind?
I mean, yeah, going professional I think crosses everyone's minds, as a boxer, but with me it's what's in front of me. I don't focus on anything like any surrounding areas. It's just what's there, get it done and fight, get in the ring.
Chris, we'll give you the final word as chef de mission. What's the legacy you'd want Glasgow 2026 to leave behind?
I think the legacy that Glasgow will definitely be remembered for is saving the Commonwealth Games. And I think when we get to India in 4 years' time, we'll look back on the Glasgow Games and thankfully they stepped in and saved the Games. I think for 2034, I think there's already some bids coming through. I think one from New Zealand and another one from maybe an African country. So hopefully it's got another 50 or 100 years of games to come.
Well, Chris, Jordan, Pau, Bradley, Ewan, thank you very much for coming along. That's it for this week's Sports Locker. The competitors already have a grueling year ahead with the Island Games happening in 2027. Faroe Islands, the location. Sports Locker is going on a bit of a break now, but we won't be gone for too long. We'll be back around mid-September or so. Thank you for tuning in every Monday, 8 o'clock. From myself and the team, it's goodbye. See you in September.